To start this journey, I used a plain dot grid journal from Michaels and a bunch of art supplies. This piece of paper doesn't really show up well on camera, so I included a swatch of a color that's kind of similar to it. But I pulled out all sorts of different scrap pieces of things to work with. Sticker booklets and sticky notes and pens and markers, stamps, washi tape, and of course the essentials like glue, whiteout, scissors, a ruler, pencils, and an eraser. Then I just dove right in. Since this is my first time doing an art journal spread, I was kind of nervous going in. The really cool thing about art journaling is that there are no rules, but that same fact can be really overwhelming at the same time. So I went to handy dandy Pinterest to get some inspiration by just searching art journals and art journaling inspo. I made a board and decided to do what I could to make it my own. I wanted my first page to at least be a little more scrapbooky, so I cut a piece of paper and then tore around the edges. There are a ton of different examples of how you can go about formulating your own spreads. Sometimes they remind you of scrapbooks like mine, or it can be just a quote on a blank page, or a collection of doodles, or a masterpiece. It's whatever you want it to be, which is why I think it is a great outlet for your creativity to flourish. So here I am finally putting these stamps to good use. I have had them for months, but haven't used them yet, so this was definitely exciting. Here on this top left corner, I decided to write out a quote which says, "Reading is a means of thinking with another person's mind. It forces you to stretch your own." The general theme for this spread is reading, so all things book related, and that is why I chose to make the color scheme brown, black, and white. It feels like reading a book while drinking a cup of tea. On the other side of the page, I used a white sticky note to cover up a mistake I made. White sticky notes are truly amazing. But anyway, I wrote this quote: "You are a reader, and therefore a thinker, an observer, a living soul who wants more out of this human experience." Then I took some glue and a scrap piece of cardboard material to fill in some of the empty space and add a darker tone to the page. I miscalculated how big it was and it hangs off the bottom of the page a little, but I've decided that it gives the journal character. On the two glued in pieces of paper, I planned on listing out some of my favorite book series and standalone novels. They aren't in any particular order because I tend to fluctuate on what my favorite books are as I grow older and expand my reading range. So I used a stamp that had a checklist and wrote them out using some Tombow brush pens. I will list all the supplies I used down in the description box for your convenience. I will say though, I get most of my art supplies from Michaels, but a good portion of it comes from Hobby Lobby. For example, I get almost all of my washi tape from Hobby Lobby, but most of my pens and markers are bought at Michaels. This entire process was really relaxing. I was just chilling in my room with a cup of tea. I had my fairy lights on. I was rewatching Stranger Things for the millionth time, and I just journaled. I've always wanted to keep a diary, but was never able to stay consistent. So I'm hopeful that this will be a way for me to kind of just journal out my thoughts, because it's really important and it's a really healing process, and it's completely unhealthy to keep your emotions bottled inside. The last thing I did was just fill the empty space with some doodles. I drew a leaf on the cardboard, and above it to the right I drew a book and wrote "I am an open book" on the pages. On the left page, I drew a plant winding downwards. I then decided to weave a quote around it which says, "I am part of everything that I have ever read." I took an Ecoline brush marker and used it to highlight and shade a few of these doodles so that they weren't so plain looking. And lastly, I drew a few stacks of books and colored them in with the same 3 accent colors I used throughout the entire spread. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching me journey through this process, and I'll see you next time.